Again, I will say good evening and welcome once again to the annual Candidates Night held by Groveland Park of the Haverhill League of Women Voters. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight on this miserable night. I think we had one like this last year, and the room was filled as it is now. So a lot of good citizens here. Thank you so much for coming. I want to also introduce Stephanie Trainer, who has made the trek over from Andover through this miserable weather.
My pleasure.
Once again, we're pleased to welcome her to shepherd us through the evening's events. So thank you, and I will turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. And thank you to the Greater Haverhill League for inviting me to serve as your moderator this evening. The League, can you hear me now? Okay. I promise I'll speak up. Okay. So the League is a nonpartisan national organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We hope that over the course of tonight's program, you'll learn more about what the candidates running for local office hope to do for Groveland. Groveland's local elections will be held on Monday, May 7th. Voters will be choosing several candidates, most of whom are in uncontested races. The contested races are for Housing Authority, with 2 candidates running for 1 5-year seat, School Committee, with 2 candidates running for 1 2-year seat, and Board of Selectmen, with 3 candidates running for 2 3-year seats. There will also be a question which asks for a debt exclusion override of Proposition 2.5 to pay the costs of designing, constructing, and equipping a new senior center. The second question on the ballot is non-binding and asks, does the town favor changing the elected position of road commissioner to the appointed position of highway superintendent, as proposed under Article 7 in the warrant for the April 30th, 2018 town meeting? I'll start by explaining the procedures for this event, which each candidate did receive ahead of time. So for the audience, if you wouldn't mind silencing your cell phones. This program is being taped for rebroadcast on local channels, local cable channels. No campaign material is allowed inside this room. We ask that you please treat all candidates fairly and remain quiet throughout the forum. And please hold your applause until all candidates have finished their closing statements. When it's time to ask questions, I'll ask you to raise your hand, and when I call on you to give your name and address, and then ask your question. And just speak loudly enough so that everyone can hear you. Your questions should apply to issues related to the particular office, and if your question is directed at a particular candidate, I will give all of the candidates an opportunity to respond. Please exit quietly if you choose to leave early, and only the press may take photos or record portions of this event. Now for the candidates, for the uncontested races, if you're here, you'll be introduced in the order that you appear on the printed ballot, and you'll be invited to make a 2-minute statement about your office and any related issues. I will then call up the candidates in the contested races who are here with us, and they will be seated in alphabetical order from left to right, which is how their names appear on the ballot. And candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and these will be followed by questions from the audience. They'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. And you'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement, candidates will. The timekeepers, there are 2 of them, are seated in the front row, and when there's half a minute left on speaking time, you'll see a 30 seconds card. Thank you, timekeepers. And at 15 seconds, you'll see a card that says 15 seconds, and I'll ask that you please finish up and wrap up when you see the stop card. So I will begin with the candidates who are here for uncontested races. And if you can stand from your seat where you are and give your 2-minute statement. So my understanding is that for Cemetery Commission, that's 1 3-year term, Deborah A. Stewart. Is Deborah here? Very good. So please go ahead.
Everyone. Definitely thank you for coming out tonight. This is definitely a great event. I'm just looking to, I'm just looking to continue the work that I've been doing over the last 3 years. We've done a lot of great things at the cemetery, a lot of great things still coming down the road, and we are just looking to make sure that everything is still running smoothly. And if there's any questions anybody has for the cemetery, we do feel free to reach out to us. But I am just looking forward to another term and continuing the good work that we've already started.
Thank you. Thank you. And the next person I understand is here with us this evening is running for library trustee. That's a 3-year term. And it's Leonard L. Thomas.
That's me.
Mr. Thomas? Oh, very good. So you have 2 minutes.
Since I'm coming this way anyways. There you are.
Yeah, my name is Leonard Lee Thomas. I'm running for Library Board of Trustees. I took a partial term when someone resigned, and for 2 years, and then I'm up for re-election for a 3-year term. I'm really pleased with what we've been able to accomplish the last few years. The library had lost its certification. We did what we needed to get the certification back. We have a new, vibrant director. I think she's going to do a great job. We just hired a new children's director. I think she's going to be great. She starts next week, week after next. So things are really going really, really well, and I want to be part of continuing to make sure things go really, really well for the library, and make it a resource the community can use use frequently and happily.
Thank you. Now, I will ask, that my understanding was these two folks who just spoke were the two who, are running. Are there any other candidates who are running in an uncontested race here? Very good. So would you like to stand up and introduce yourself? And you have 2 minutes. Great.
Good evening. I'm Wally Sorensen. I'm on the ballot as my official name, Walter Sorensen Jr. I am up for re-election. I've already been in office for 25 years. This will be my 6th term coming up. For those of you that aren't familiar with the planning board, we're the ones that do all the regulations for zoning and planning and all the maps you see around town. And some of our milestones on my watch were the complete rewrite of the subdivision control law, which did take us about 3 or 4 years. Those went into effect in the late 90s, and it's a living document, so we're currently doing that. Also, the zoning bylaws, which have taken us quite a while. You've seen some of them come up at town meeting. The zoning maps, Aquifer Protection Maps, those were 40 years out of date.
Wow.
And it took us 7 years to do those. Those are complete, and they're constantly being updated now with the new programs we have in effect. The master plan that was put through, it'll be surfacing again soon. And part of the things that we look at is like the Center Street project, where we purchased that land, and that was one of the things that I actually spearheaded over 20 years ago. It was at a much lower price then, though. The planning board gets a stipend of $300 a year. My stipend goes to the library for children's books. For those of you that have children or grandchildren, if you've opened the cover, you'll see donated by the Sorensen family of Groveland, and that's where my stipend goes. So I look forward to serving Groveland for another 5 years. That'll be 30 years, the town of Groveland, and I work for the people. I do not work for contractors or developers. I work for the people. I do remember that. So give me a call if you have any questions or issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So is there anyone else, any other candidate on the ballot? Okay, so if that's the case, thank you. So the next office that there's a little bit of an issue for Housing Authority. There are 2 candidates running for 1 5-year seat, but Linda Anderson was not able to be with us this evening due to illness. So I would like to ask Inger M. Burke to make a 2-minute statement, if she is here. Very good. So I'm sorry we couldn't have you go up to the table and answer questions, but you can make a 2-minute statement. Sure.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Inger Burke, and I'm running for a resident representative for the Groveland Housing Authority, and I have never run for public office before, so I hope you'll have patience with me. I'd like to say thank you first for the League of Women for the candidates night tonight. Since the beginning, I have been active in the Residents' Council here at River Pines. And for those of you who do not know, it is part of the HUD regulation part 964, designed to recognize the importance of the residents' involvement in creating a positive environment. While while participating in the information gathering and planning for that goes into the Residents' Council, opened my eyes to many ways the residents' issues are often ignored and disparaged. I strongly believe by having the chance, by being in the Groveland Housing Authority Board, I can give the residents a strong, positive representation. As we know, HUD regulations support the overall residents' participation in all aspects of the housing mission. While HUD encourages meetings to take place in our community room, currently the residents feel left out. At the meetings, residents feel left out, and when it comes to our opinions and suggestions and our inputs, we feel unwelcomed, especially with every meeting crammed in the director's office when seating is sparse and hearing is impaired. When it comes to our opinions, concerns, and input, it is relegated at the end of every open meeting after every detail is discussed. It is not hard to feel unwelcomed and undervalued. I know what the residents want, and I know how to listen, and I know how to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll now call up the two candidates running for one 3-year term on the school committee. That would be Daniel J. McDonald and incumbent Lisa M. O'Connor. Okay, sure. So as soon as you're ready. Okay, so you'll each have a 2-minute opening statement, and Mr. McDonald, you're first.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel MacDonald, for those of you that don't know me. I've been a resident of this town since 2005. I moved here with my wife, my triplet 1-year-olds at the time, who are now 13 years of age. All of them are in the 7th grade. We moved here for the quality of the public education and the rural atmosphere of the town. It's a nice place to live. What's changed over the years, and it's the reason why I'm here, is since we moved here, I believe that the school results have declined over the past decade. Most recently, the MCAS scores, grades 3 through 8, with the exception of 7th grade English, all of the categories were below state average. I think we can do better than that as a school district and as a community, and I want to work hard to achieve turning that around and making this school district above average. I believe we should be a top 3rd school district and not a bottom half. So that's why I'm here, to bring about change. So I appreciate your support, and that's what I want to do.
Thank you. Ms. O'Connor.
Hi, my name is Lisa O'Connor, and I'm running for my 3rd term. I'm running for my 3rd term as a school committee member, so I'm going into my 6th year. I've lived in Groveland now for 24 years with my husband and my 2 children, ages 17 and 19. They were both educated here at the school district. I have served in such capacities on the school committee as the chairman, the assistant chair, and the secretary. I've also served on numerous subcommittees, such as the policy subcommittee for 6 years, the teaching, learning, and accountability subcommittee for 3 years. There's a whole bunch of them. The communications subcommittee for 1 year, the building subcommittee for 1 year while I was chair for the high school, middle school building project. I've also served on a anti-bullying subcommittee 3 different years, which was 2010, 2012, 2014, as well as 2016. And I've also served on 2 of the innovation subcommittee groups that we had developing the innovation schools, which was the athletics as well as the music. I'm also a special education advocate, and I do believe very strongly that every child has a right to have their needs met in a school district, and we need to have safe schools, and we need to have strong teachers and strong academics, and that way our children will be successful. And I really have enjoyed serving on the school committee, and I want to continue. I also serve on the Whittier Tech School Committee as well. This is my 2nd year. And in that capacity, I serve on the policy subcommittee, the finance subcommittee, and the teachers' contract subcommittees.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to questions from the audience, and you'll have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. So, okay. So if you have a question, the cable TV fellow has just asked if you could go to the podium. So are there questions for the candidates for school? Very good. So we'll just wait till you make your way over. Thank you.
Don't go all up at once.
And you'll state your name and address and then ask your question.
Hi, my name's Erin Merrill. I live at 14 Summer Street in Groveland. And I have a question for both candidates. Both the superintendent and associate superintendent are leaving this year, so we're going to have a committee to start a new search. In previous years, we have gotten rid of the international travel for the students. We used to have an exchange program with Germany that has been stopped. And I'm just wondering if that is going to be a new criteria for for the superintendent and associate superintendent to possibly bring that back. I know a lot of districts are expanding this now for the children in high school, and I just didn't know what Pentucket would be thinking now with a new, fresh start, I guess you could say.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Connor, this will go to you first.
Okay, so I suppose I can talk from experience as to why those programs were stopped. So as you know, in Massachusetts, they now require, they've always required queries to be done on all people that work with our children. Recently, they require all children to now also, adults to also be fingerprinted. But when you go out of state for overnight field trips, like if you go to New Hampshire or Washington, D.C. or where have you, those states hold different laws, and those people do not need to be fingerprinted. The same thing goes for students that travel overseas. So we felt that, if we do have a field trip, such as the 8th graders going to Washington, D.C., that those are teachers chaperoned and our teachers are queried and fingerprinted. However, if you have children going to maybe a 6th grade nature's field trip up to New Hampshire or going overseas, our school staff is not staying overnight with them. So therefore, we cannot do query checks and fingerprints and assure our children's safety. Moving forward with the new superintendent and assistant superintendent, I'm sure that there will be committees and everybody will be putting their heads together to try to come up with a good plan moving
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Wasn't aware that it was stopped, but child safety is #1. It's paramount. But certainly, if there were chaperones that went on the trips with them, I think that could, satisfy that. If they're accompanied. So in terms of the budget's been set for the next fiscal year. So the new superintendent coming in, it would have to be discussed for the following year, I believe. But I don't know if they can add it in midstream. But certainly it's of value to study abroad. So if it can be done and there's a demand for it and a need for it, then it should be looked at further.
Thank you. So other audience questions?
Just a quick questions.
Sorry, you can't.
Do other schools in the area?
You do need to go to the mic. I know. We can't use the, I know. Sorry about that.
Seems like a long way to go.
Yeah.
It would seem that exchange program would be a very valuable thing. Are other schools in the area having the same problem? Or is it just us guys?
Excuse me, could you give your name and address? Your name and address?
Leah Crane, 405 River Pines.
Okay.
Go.
I'm not aware of any problems. I mean,
Are other school districts having a exchange program?
I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I'm a new kid on the block on this subject, so
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, if it used to be and it worked well before and there weren't incidents, then I think it should be looked at, but, you know, I wouldn't abandon it, I wouldn't dismiss it, but certainly if there's a safety issue and a Corey background issue, then it needs to be looked at seriously. I mean, this is not a safe world. It really isn't, so.
And
Does that answer your question?
Yes, so Ms. O'Connor, I'll let her have a chance.
I do see that Inga Berger is raising her hand as well, and Inga, I know that is very knowledgeable on our foreign exchange program. So to answer your question as well, yes, I do assume, and I don't, you know, serve on other school committee boards other than Whittier Tech. Whittier Tech is not doing these field trips. However, I'm sure other towns are, but I'm concerned about our school district's safety of our students. So, you know, it's a school committee decision. It's not my decision. It's a decision as a 9-member board.
Thank you.
Inge Berger, 5 Pinewood Lane. I taught at Pentucket for over 30 years, and I ran the exchange program for about 20 years, so I think I can answer that question. Yes, there are other schools who are continuing to doing this term in exchange. I don't think they do anything about a CORI. Our students used to stay with families, so, and then those students came over here, so there was a personal connection. So I think doing a CORI is way over. I don't think, doesn't make sense to me. But there are, that's the question I wanted to answer. There are many schools who continue to do German exchanges. Okay, so while I'm up here, I wanted to ask a question. Mr. McDonald, you said that you wanted to bring the scores up, and I wanted to hear specifically what you would do to raise the scores in the schools.
Okay.
So actually, I'm just, as the moderator, so it would be Ms. O'Connor actually would have the first crack at this?
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Lisa,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Okay, so what I can say about the scores is I'll give a little brief history, and I only have 2 minutes. A brief history. So I believe that the scores dropped 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, the kids were taking MCAS, the old MCAS. And then the state switched over, Massachusetts, DESE switched over to PARC, or people could stay with the old MCAS. We decided as a school district to move forward with PARC if that's the way that everybody was going. So we took PARC for 2 years, and it did not affect us in our ranking as a school district because it was a trial period. And then last year, everybody in the state took MCAS 2.0. Some people took it on paper, and some people took it on computers, depending on what school districts could offer. However, during that time period as well, we stopped offering school choice to our students because we wanted to decrease class sizes. That also meant that we had to decrease a teacher population, unfortunately. So teachers with seniority stayed on, and the ones that were new had to leave. So teachers were moved around a little bit. So there was, and everybody was getting used to the new MCAS 2.0. It was new. So I'm not surprised that we have low scores, where some people took the MCAS 2.0 and went right into the original MCAS and took the 2.0. How we're moving forward in the future, I am serving on the Teaching, Learning, and Accountability Subcommittee. We are looking at new curriculum now. It's all being evaluated, and it's going to be going and following along with the new MCAS as well as the Massachusetts state curriculum frameworks.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
I think what needs to be done is the district needs to invest more time and effort into teacher training on the new standards under the next generation MCAS. I'm not sure they did that. It seems like they got caught off guard on this one. Other districts have had to come up to speed on the same test in the same time frame, and they performed a lot better than this district. So I think they let their guard down, and they need to get their guard back up at all levels. The other thing is the district needs to invest in new information, whether it's in paper format or digital format. I brought my child's math textbook here as an example. This is circa 1990, okay? So if you have a next generation MCAS test, you really need some tools for students that model maybe the test. Now, people say, well, don't teach to the test. Well, every test has a certain format. Well, if you learn it out of a book that's 1990, they tore the cover off. I think it had the World Trade Center on it. It's antiquated. I looked through the budget recently to look for the budget on textbooks and periodicals, and it's zero. So I hope that it's in another line item somewhere, and I'm just unaware of where those funds are. But you need to invest in the knowledge on a current basis. You need periodicals. You need continuing education. I'm a certified public as well as an attorney, and I need 80 hours of continuing education to renew my license this June. So we need continuing education specific to the next generation MCAS being provided to the teachers to help them do their jobs effectively. And I don't think that happened in the last couple of years. So we need to make that happen. It's a must, not a maybe.
Thank you. So, yes, so if you'll just go to the podium and then.
My
Great.
name is Parker Moody. I live at 27 Star Road. And first, I just wanted to mention I used a textbook like that, and I can't believe that they still use those.
Yeah.
And I graduated in 2011, so those are fairly old books to me. And also, I wanted to know what each of your opinions are on a new high school and middle school building, because that's something that's very near and dear to my heart, because I remember going through the school district, we were constantly joking with each other on when we thought the building was going to fall apart officially. So I believe that that we should have new buildings, but I just wanted to get both of your takes on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, you're first.
It all depends on cost to me. I'm an accountant, and I think like one. I'm wired like one, and I look at costs and benefits, and I weigh the benefits and the burdens. I haven't seen final numbers on projections as to whether or not it's cost-effective to rehab the buildings or to tear them down and start over. I have spoken with some people in town, some engineers, and they say it's, the cost to penetrate and run new systems and plumbing and wiring, it may be more cost-effective to knock the buildings down and start over. So, depending on what the conclusion is on that question, if you need new schools, you have to pay for them. I mean, you can't wait for the roof to collapse like happened in Georgetown on a snowfall. You can't wait for the disaster. We should be proactive as a community. It certainly is a tremendous investment in the community, but whether or not you have children in the district or you simply own a house, anyone who knows anything about real estate's directly tied towards, values are tied towards the quality and the of the education within each district. So if you have a fantastic school district, your house is worth top dollar. So everyone benefits. It's kind of a win-win. So if we need the new school, then we'll figure out how to pay for it. It can't be a blank check. I've heard numbers kicked around, 130 million, whether or not we have, a combo deal with a high school and a junior high. My preference would be not to separate the grades by age. I'm not too keen with 7th graders hanging out with 12th graders, That's my personal opinion. If they had some sort of division in the high school and the middle school. I think over in Ipswich they pulled that off and it works out well. So you have to look at it, and I'm not going to draw an absolute conclusion until I see numbers.
Thank you. Ms. O'Connor?
Okay, by serving on the school committee, I did, serving while I was chair, I served as well on the group of people that hired the engineers to come in and do a feasibility study on I'm sorry, not the middle school, but the high school, and the condition of it. We paid upwards of $700,000 for the feasibility study. They completed that, and then we moved forward with the building committee. And we've had numerous meetings in all of the towns, and they were all public meetings, and everybody was invited to come and look at, all of our options. And continually putting Band-Aids on a building that's in very, very bad condition it's not feasible anymore. We've done it for a number of years. And the other problem is that, the high school is upwards of 60 years old. The middle school is close behind. And there's actually even a lot of parts of like maybe the boiler system in the high school that we can't even replace anymore. And we can't properly wire on buildings for Wi-Fi, and a lot of the rooms don't have heat, and they don't even meet our curriculum anymore, the high school classrooms. I live in Groveland, and I'm a taxpayer, and I fully understand, that if, this passes, that our taxes are going to be affected by it. But people also need to understand that the state of Massachusetts is over and above, it's called the MSBA, they're over and above this project, they're overseeing the project, and they're willing to put in 50% of the cost of the building. So if it is $120,000, that knocks it down to $120 million. It knocks it down to 60 million, and then that's divided pretty much amongst the 3 towns, depending on student population. So Groveland isn't eating the full cost of the building project. And again, I am a taxpayer, and I am financially, conservative. So, I do think that we need a new middle high school, but I don't want to go over and above spending on it.
Thank you.
Irene Thomas, Baldwin Terrace. As a member of the Pentucket School Committee, you would be representing the Pentucket schools. And I'm just wondering if you talked to somebody about the schools, what would be 2 or 3 areas of progress or positive comments you would make about the Pentucket schools?
Thank you. Ms. O'Connor, you're first.
Number one, I think that, we got a new superintendent 6 years ago, and I think things turned around tremendously with him and, the plans that he put into place. We have innovation schools now at the high school, and innovation schools are basically taking the courses that we currently had and lining them up in such a way that it's just a natural flow for students that want to continue studying, in the innovation schools. And we also have innovation schools as well in our elementary schools. So Merrimack has International Baccalaureate, and West Newbury and Groveland both have the engineering programs, and they flow right into the middle school and then into the high school programs. So everything has come together nicely, even though we are still evaluating new curriculum. I believe that, our teachers are very much on board, and the students are very much on board. And just recently, we polled the students to see how they felt about everything through an online polling system, and everybody seems very happy. And that's huge. Our students are going to fantastic colleges, and I think, my big thing is making sure that all of our students' needs are met. And in order to do that, we have to have safe schools as well. And we've come a long, long way. And I'm not going to talk about, things that we have in place for safety, because, I don't want to put our students in jeopardy. However, we have very strong safety things in place now for our students and our staff. And I think that's a very, very positive thing.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
What's positive about the district? The people that live in this community work hard. It's the values of the people. I look at my children's friends and their parents, and it's good. And I've lived in other places where, you go to school and, people hanging around and staring at you. It doesn't exist in this town. I mean, it's a rock-solid community. So, not to be, cliche or anything, but it's the people. In terms of, I compare and contrast my youth, my childhood, my upbringing in schools I attended. The district has fantastic music program. When I was a kid, I had trumpet once a week, you know. My daughter and son take violin as a regular class 5 days a week. I think that's outstanding. The music program's top. So the district invests in the arts, and the arts are of value. The higher grades, the SAT scores for the kids coming out of the high school, they're pretty good. I think the math was 575, if I'm correct. I mean, it's above average. The lower grades, like I said, MCAS scores, grades 3 through 8 need some work, and I think we can turn that around. As a district, you know, maybe years ago they were better, but if you've been there and done that, you can go back to it, and I think we need to turn around and circle the wagons and pick up and move on. So there will be better days within the district because, you know, people want it. So I think it's attitude. Attitude's everything.
Thank you. So are there any other questions? So 2 more? Okay. 3 more. All right.
I'm Emily Dwyer. I live at 6 Alpha Road. I also currently serve on the school committee with Lisa. And I heard Mr. McDonald say in his introduction about the MCAS results, which we're all concerned about. And I heard you just now talking about the SAT scores. But as an elementary school teacher, I have to say that I know that test scores are not the only indicator of what is working and not working in our school, our school system. And so you had mentioned earlier about bringing about change and turning this around. And I'm curious what specifically, aside from the test scores going up, ideally, you had in mind in terms of turning things around.
How would I turn
Thank
things
you.
around? Okay. From my children's experience, they went through the Bagnell Elementary School, and they were there from preschool all the way through 6th grade. Under the current system, they were in inclusion classes, okay? I equate them and assimilate them to a one-room schoolhouse, okay? You have children at this level, and you have children at this level, all in the same classroom, okay? I don't think that that benefits the children or the teachers, okay? Because the teachers are forced to teach children at a vast and varied learning level, okay? I don't know how, I think that's an impossible task. For the students, you need to speak to their level. So whenever you're addressing any group of people, you want to speak to your audience at an effective level, you know, a coherent level. So you've heard the expression, teaching to the bottom of the classroom. We don't want to fall into that. You don't want to teach to the top of the classroom or the bottom of the classroom. You want to teach to each and every audience so that each and every student can maximize their potential. So I would have an option in the elementary schools, okay? You have it in the middle school in 7th and 8th grade. My kids are participating in it. We need an accelerated math option. We should have an accelerated English option in the elementary school. We don't. We don't. And you could break up those classes according to ability, and you could effectively teach to each audience, and I think that would take the pressure off the teachers. I think they have an impossible task to teach to children at all levels within the classroom, okay? It's not working. I think we need to change gears. I grew up and I went to school and they had 5 tracks. So I don't know that we want to go back to a 5-track system, but I'm much happier with my children in accelerated math and ELA and science in 7th grade, and they never had that opportunity in the elementary school, and I think I held back some of my children. Okay, so you shouldn't hold back any children.
Thank you. Ms. O'Connor.
At the Bagnell School, we do have various programs to meet a lot of students' needs. For students that are struggling, perhaps, we have a language-based program, and that's to teach literacy skills to a population that needs that select type of programming. And then we also have co-taught classrooms, which is the next step up, and those are classrooms that are staffed with general education teachers as well as special education teachers, and there's usually a paraprofessional in the classroom as well. And then we usually have at every grade level 2 regular classrooms that are not co-taught. So the way things stand right now, I do think that, you know, we are definitely meeting all of our students' needs. You know, everybody needs to be challenged to learn. And I think the teachers, and again, I had 2 students go through the Bagnell as well, and 2 of my children went through. And I do, you know, both of my children very different from each other. And I think the Bagnell did a really good job meeting their individualized needs when they went through the school district. And again, you know, I think parents are their child's best advocate, but you also need strong schools to support your students as well. And I think, you know, what I would do is what I have been doing. You know, I advocate for the students, I advocate for families, and I advocate for the taxpayers. And I will continue to do so. And I know that, you know, we are in the process of hiring a new superintendent and a new assistant superintendent. And I will be, you know, if I continue on the school committee, I have every intentions of, you know, when these candidates get narrowed down, interviewing them to find out what their plans are and what their visions are, because I know the path that I want to continue on with the school district.
Thank you. So, so it looks like, are there 4 more questions? Or, oh, okay, 3 more. Okay, very good.
Hi, my name is Anita Wright. I live at 21 Ashcroft Terrace in Groveland, Massachusetts. I've been a resident for 32 years, I think. I first and foremost would like to give a shout out to the special ed teachers and the school nurses. I would like to give a shout out to an outstanding wrestling team for Pentucket, great cheerleaders, and the girls basketball team. I love reading their press. I have a question that may be a little in left field. Forgive me for asking it, but I'm just curious. Do we have about 100 or 120 students a year entering the Pentucket regional system? Is that about what it would be, new freshmen, sophomores? I mean, how many students a year actually enter the system? It's just a guesstimate.
So Ms. O'Connor, you're first on this one.
Yeah, that's a good estimation. I know that our numbers have gone up. I assume you're talking high school, right?
Yes, just high school.
Our numbers have increased since we have introduced the innovation schools. Our population of students has increased quite a bit from parents, and we're talking across the district, not just Groveland. But our population has increased dramatically from students that were going to private schools. Because we do have such strong programs and strong teachers, and you know, like I said, our kids are getting into really great colleges.
Good.
You know, they have good.
I was
good
mostly
SAT
interested
scores.
in the number. I don't dispute anything else you said. Has anybody ever entertained? I'm sorry.
Yes. So Mr. McDonald,
From the,
He's looking at his
the
numbers.
website, there are all students enrolled 1,386.
That's in the entire school district.
Yeah, I believe that's correct, right?
Okay.
Well, that's the whole district, all grades, right?
All
Yeah,
grades.
so divide
K
by
through
12. I mean, I don't know. Are you asking whether or not it's
How many
low or
students a year go
high?
in
Probably
as
about
new freshmen?
120, 110, 120.
Good. Has anybody ever entertained the thought, or do you know of any other schools that have considered looking at 100 students and renting space in larger high schools to educate them? Like making Newburyport High School, Haverhill, Andover, whatever schools I may have missed, and looking at that as a means of providing high-grade education for students.
Well, how would that work? I mean,
I'm just asking the question.
Okay, so I mean, I can
Ms. O'Connor.
talk to you about school choice. Every family has a right to school choice if they want their child to go to Newburyport or Georgetown or wherever they want their child to go.
But as a town, and we're paying so many dollars per student, have we ever factored out what it would cost to rent that space and pay per head per student?
I don't know why we would do that. Personally, I don't
Economics.
understand why we would have other towns educating our students.
It
Just a thought.
So Mr. McDonald, Ms. Wu.
It sounds like what you're asking is a voucher system. I mean,
perhaps, I don't know, I'm just asking. I don't know if anybody else has done it or tried it.
Well,
It's just a thought.
people have advocated for a voucher system, and there's pros and cons. You know, if you take your voucher, can you go to a private school, and does that, you know, subtract from funds available for public education? We had a ballot question, I think it was a year ago, for charter schools, and the state shot it down. I see the benefits of it. I believe in competition. I think competition makes America great. I think we can all get a little bit too complacent and set in our ways if we don't have competition. So, you know.
Thank you. It's just food for thought.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes. And then I think
I'm not sure
we'll
how close to get to this.
wrap it up after.
Robin Gleason, 17 Baldwin Terrace, Groveland. I just actually have my question for Mr. McDonald, if that's okay.
Actually, both candidates will get a chance to
Okay,
answer.
that's okay.
Yeah,
That's
those
all right. I don't
legal
know how
rules,
much
yeah.
Ms. Connors will be able to answer this question, but I just wanted to know, as you were represented as a town selectman, you had very strong opinions about the schools and about your support for the budget for the schools. At one point, you said, I'm a teacher within the school, and my children have both gone through the school. I really, I think there's a lot of hard workers at our school, both all the way through. And you said that we were overpaid and underworked.
I don't know that I said that.
Yeah, you did, you did.
No, I don't think so.
Honey, I'm sorry, I'm not, I'm talking my kidney. You did say that, and I remember, because I was sitting in the meeting, so I just wanted to have you, because it bothers me. It bothered a lot of my coworkers and my children. So how would you, if you feel that way about the teachers?
It's not how I feel.
But that's what you said. How, if you said we were overpaid and underworked.
I don't believe so.
And, yeah, yes, you did. You did. You did. So
Okay,
I'm not sure
so-
how you would represent
so-
the students.
okay, so
That's-
let's-
So I'm sorry, my question is,
okay.
I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. I wasn't gonna, so my question is, how would you represent your students who are supported through the teachers, if that's how you feel?
I'll clarify my position. I believe in a merit-based system, okay? I respect teachers, but I disagree with the union-based system. I don't mix words about that. We have a system where it's based on longevity and seniority, okay? I'm not a big advocate of unions in general, but especially in the government sector, there's no competition. So, within the union-based system, there are fantastic teachers. And my kids went to the Bagnell Elementary School, and this is a small town. I'll tell you who the fantastic teachers are. Loved Mrs. Gray. Miss Forrest was fantastic in the 6th grade, okay? Miss Forrest came in and cleaned up basically a mess that was the 5th grade education. It was a disaster. So there are teachers that are grossly underpaid, and they ought to get a bonus. There are teachers in the system, and but for the union system, they may not be teaching. So I make no excuses for those people. Those people are overpaid. So it's a mixed bag. So it's not a sweeping generality on my part to say that teachers, okay, are underpaid and overworked, okay? Some of them overwork. Some of them don't, and that is your union-based system. I am not an advocate of the teachers' union system. I believe in a right to work. We don't have that until we get a couple more guys on the Supreme Court to flip it, okay? But until that happens, I have to work within the system, okay? But I respect teachers. I need teachers. Our society needs teachers, okay? But the system has to police its own, and I think it needs to do a better job of policing it. My children, there was absolute disaster in the 5th grade. I complained all year. Nothing was done about it. That's my beef with the system, okay? It's not with any saying that teachers don't work. So that's my position on it. Some are underpaid, some are overpaid.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Connor, would you like to address that in any way?
Well, I'm not going to address about the whole selectmen piece of that.
Right.
And I was at that meeting as well with the teachers because I stand by them. I am familiar with the teachers union at both Pentucket and Whittier Tech, I've served on both of the salary negotiation meetings. They're long, they're arduous, and I believe we always leave the table and everybody's still smiling. The Pentucket teachers, as well as Whittier Tech, and I believe a lot of school districts, because we've compared them and try to compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges, work off of a tiered system. So it really depends on, you know, teachers, how many years they've been at the district, how many degrees they have, how many credits they have for classes that they've attended. So everybody's pretty much all over, but it is fair. You know, if you go up a degree, you go over in the tier. If you go up in credits, you go over in the tier. And the bottom line is that we always try to keep below the 2.5% increase, so we don't have to go for overrides. But for the teachers' union, I do have a lot of respect for the teachers' union, and I know that the teachers work hard.
Thank you. So I think now we will move on to closing statements. And Ms. O'Connor, you'll go first. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I know that, you know, you people have been here tonight, and so you pretty much know who I am and what I'm about. And again, I am an advocate, and I advocate for our schools, and I advocate for our community. And, you know, I do believe that communication is it's extremely important amongst everybody that's involved. And I also believe in safe schools. And I also want to make sure that we don't have any budget overrides. I want to make sure that if there's a high school, middle school project that gets put forth, that, you know, financially conservative with that, and everybody's needs are met. And again, you know, I think, you know, we got to keep evaluating our curriculum to make sure that it's in line, not just with the Massachusetts, Massachusetts mandated testing, but as well as, you know, meeting all of our students' needs.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Again, my focus is on change. I'm the change candidate. If you're for the status quo, probably not your guy. I want to bring about change. I want higher standards. I want better results. I believe in standardized tests. It's a measuring stick. Children need to have a core curriculum. It needs to be implemented, not just talked about, and that's what we need. We need a superintendent, a new one, and all the vision in the world without implementation are just dreams. So we need to make baby steps, we need to step forward, and we need to get the curriculum on the desks in front of the children, support the teachers with their resources, and also teach to each child, not just en masse. And I think the district has done not the greatest job when it comes to teaching to each and every child. And our MCAS scores show it. I mean, they were an absolute disaster in the past year. There's no excuse, or really no excuse, for being below state average in this town. None, okay? $16,000 per pupil, $40 million school budget, okay? There's no excuse for being below average. I'm not going to point the fingers at who's to blame, because we're all to blame, okay? We all need to pull in the same direction and not pull apart. We need an administration that puts academic excellence first, okay? And that's what I want to hear about. I want to hear that the children are academically achieving at all levels. I want to see those numbers go up, and that's why I'm running for school committee. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll now call up the candidates, the 3 candidates running for 2 3-year seats on the Board of Selectmen: James P. Logan, Edward H. Watson, and Michael N. Wood. So you each will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then I'll be varying the order in which you answer the questions from the audience so that you each have an opportunity to be first, middle, and last. And your closing statements will be given in the reverse order. So we'll start with Mr. Logan. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming here this evening. I'll be as short as I can. When it comes to being a selectman, I know zero. I am, we'll say, a baby in the woods. But the reason why I am going for selectman is my taxes keep on going up. It's over $8,000 now. And I'd like to see the town of Groveland live within a budget. I do not like to see cost overruns. And I got a funny feeling we're going to have one coming, which means the taxes are going to go up more. I believe that the selectmen do a good job, okay? I'm not condemning anyone as far as being a past selectman. If you want to find out all about my background, they can ask me during the intermission or whatever. And I'll just take it from there. If you want to know anything about my history, you can ask me. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Yes, I'm Ed Watson, running for another 3-year term on the Board of Selectmen. A little over 3 years ago, I retired after almost 32 years with the City of Haverhill Police Department. I ran for selectman, and I won. It took a while to learn the ropes, and we got rolling, and the thing that I hear mostly from people is taxes. And with the school committee candidates that spoke, they talked about a new school. I hear people, they say, well, if my taxes reach X amount of dollars, I can't afford it, I'm going to have to move out. And it varies on individuals. And the town of Groveland it's a bedroom community. We need to accept some businesses to take the tax burden off of the hardworking homeowners, and we may have to relax some of the restrictions that are preventing businesses from moving in. Businesses, in addition to paying real estate taxes, they pay excise taxes on their motor equipment. They also pay personal property taxes on their office equipment and other things. So it's a big benefit. Businesses don't add people to the schools. We have Chesterton, a great company, great for the town of Groveland. I go by there every day. I have never seen the school bus stop there to pick up students. The same thing with the industrial park up on Salem Street. It's a big benefit. Businesses, they don't add to our school system. So we need to be a lot more business friendly. I've lived in the town of Groveland all my life, and the town of Groveland has always been anti-business, and it needs to change. We got a stop sign here.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your obeying the sign. So, Mr. Wood.
Yes. So, my name is Mike Wood. Thanks for coming out tonight. So this position is definitely demanding, complex, and all around interesting, if you ask me. More than I expected so in the last 3 years. Not many of the issues that come before us are easy to tackle, but over the last 3 years, and even more so over the last probably 5 or 6 months, the board has really started to work well together. Some of the items that we have worked on together as a board, not individually, have been: we transitioned the police department from former Chief Kremelowitz over to Chief Gillen. The police department is doing a great job, running smoothly and efficiently. We improved the field behind Bagnell. Now the kids have something to play on besides dirt. We improved the security at Bagnell, and now we are including new training and being more proactive with their security given the recent events in the news. We're close to closing some excessive land sales that will help give us some free cash to pay for some things coming up. We're coordinating resources and personnel and planning, so when we are better prepared for the next weather emergency as we all experienced back in March. The tax rate actually has stayed pretty consistent. The reason the taxes have gone up are for the debt exclusions that have been passed. We hired a great building inspector in Sam. We hired a great detail-focused accountant in Ellen. We built up the stabilization accounts. We created the capital stabilizations accounts. And we created and funded OPEB trust accounts. So I think as a board collectively, we're really starting to hit our stride. I think we're doing a good job. We're coming together, trying to get things done, what's best for the town. And hopefully I'll continue to do that for another 3 years.
Thank you. So now we'll accept questions from the audience, and if you don't mind going over to the podium and state your name and your question. So.
Come on, there's a question out there.
Anybody.
Come on.
Just the first, yes, right. See, you're breaking the ice, which is good.
Jennifer O'Malley, Pandora Drive. I've been here 42 years. We're desperate to have a new high school and middle school, and I'd like to know and make sure that you would support that.
Okay, so Mr. Watson, you're first.
Yes, to answer it simply, yes. We do need a new high school. And one of the problems with the current schools is it's not set up for the new technology. It can't run the new wires for all the new computers. There's some hazardous materials, I believe, in some of the flooring. So yes, we need a new school. Well, whether it's going to be one building to serve the junior high as well as the high school, or whether it's going to be two separate buildings. But yes, we definitely need new buildings down there. Hopefully, we can get some the state money to kick in and take some of the burden off of the taxpayers. And this is where businesses in the town of Groveland would help out, because they don't send any children to school, but they will be contributing the cost to the building. Thank you. It was a great question.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, you're next.
Yeah, so we do need a new school. I graduated from Pentucket in 1990, so I remember walking through that very same school with the very same issues that are being plagued today. So the costs are being juggled around about $120, $130 million. The state, if you use a state-canned architecture plan, they'll kick in about half. So that leaves about $60 million between the three towns, which is not divided evenly. It's divided by population. And unfortunately, Groveland has more kids. So we're looking at about 25 million out of that 60 million. So really what people have to realize is how it's going to affect their household and the bottom line. So at about 25 million, each house is going to look at about a $600 or $800 increase in their taxes, which isn't insignificant given some of the other projects coming down the line, anything that's unforeseen coming, as well as some of the water issues, the senior center, some of the roads, anything that comes down the line. So you really got to look at it from a personal standpoint, as well as how is it going to affect your real estate property. As Ms. McDonald said, that is one of the major factors in how your house is valued. So I do support it. I think given the cost that it's going to incur on my taxes, that have gone up every year or so, I think they've increased about $1,500 to $2,000 over the last 6 or 7 years. But I think this type of expense is something that you will see a return on whenever you do decide to sell your house or something.
Thank you. And Mr. Logan.
Yes, as far as the school situation, I say yes and no, okay? And one of the reasons is because, as Ed pointed out, technology is changing. And I only read one paper, that's the Wall Street Journal. I don't care about who gets killed, who gets shot. Wall Street Journal just tells it like it is. And what they told me yesterday was that there is such a demand for truck drivers, and it's good pay. And I believe, and also they had construction people, plumbers, everybody is retiring. And as far as going to college, I think it's great. Before you go to college, go to a grade school, learn a trade, a plumber, electrician, then go to college. Now, if you don't make it in college, you've got a trade. You're not going to be behind Dunkin' Donuts someplace selling coffee. And that's what I believe in. And I wish that the education would somewhat gear more towards Whittier Votech, where they can teach children. As far as my learning, I was thrown out at the 8th grade, October 1st, 1956. I didn't get my high school diploma until I was 27. I went to law school. I worked with Ed. I started off with Mr. Shanahan. I was a police officer in Groveland. Before that, I worked for the Lawrence House of Correction, also a deputy sheriff, and I was as I say, a police officer in Haverhill. So I got a lot of degree of a lot of law in me, not necessarily schools. I got 30 seconds. Thank you, ma'am. I sometimes don't stop at stop signs. I slow down. I tell it like it is. I am not politically correct. I'm going to tell you that right up front. Okay. I'm also not a yes man. I'm not a butt kisser. I'm a hard person to get along with sometimes. Okay. 15 seconds and counting. I'm going down for the count. Again, stop. She said stop. All right, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you, timekeepers. So any other questions from the audience? Yes. Okay. I know it's a little, okay.
Ruth Race, 3 Nichols Way. My question is not as weighty as tax rates, but at any rate, I'm going to ask you something that I think is important. And I know that at the moment, the Board of Selectmen has no supervision over the road commissioner. That may change. We have something to discuss that on the, or you'll be voting for it, I should say, on the ballot. But this has concerned me. I wish to ask you if, as a Board of Selectmen, in your interactions with the state, if you would be requesting money for the line painting on Route 113, which I know is a state road, and the state gives money to the towns for this. The white lines there are almost non-existent. And I can tell you from experience, it's very hard on a foggy night, or even a night like tonight, which is probably going to be foggy by the time we get out there. It is not easy to see. So I kept hoping, as a matter of fact, after last year's candidates' night, when it was a poor night, that I would see those lines repainted this summer, but they weren't. Then again in December, I noticed them that way. I think something, as a safety measure, which it comes under your purview, if you will, as Board of Selectmen, I think something needs to be done, and I would like to ask if you would request of the state in its money to you for roads that are taken care of by the state.
Okay, Mr. Wood, you're first.
Yeah, so that's relatively easy to do, to ask. To get it is another issue. So when that project was going on, there were several asks from town residents to say, you know, can you fix my driveway? Can you fix this? This is a problem we're having with this particular entryway. And we had the contractor come in, answer some questions, and give us some timeframes on what exactly they're going to do to fix these issues that they really didn't know about until we brought it up to them. And then how they're going to go about doing it. So as far as painting the lines, that seems like a relatively easy thing to do. It's just a matter of getting in contact with the contractor who did the project, making him aware of it, and then bringing him back in. That shouldn't be difficult.
Thank you. Mr. Logan?
Yes, I definitely agree on this. This is a safety issue. And especially, it never bothered me, we'll say 10, 15 years ago, but I noticed as I got older and older, I'm pushing 78, and I seem to, at nighttime, the lights are blinding me, and I'm looking for that white line, because the oncoming cars, I'm not too sure. Am I going to be lined up in the dirt? So I look for the white line. If the white line is there, I have a little bit of a hard time judging. As you get older and older, you're going to find this out. So yes, those lines are very, very important, especially in the wintertime. They're very, very important. You get oncoming cars coming at you with those lights. These lights nowadays, they're so bright, I think the guy's got his high beams on. Okay, and yes, I'm all for that, by all means. Thank you, madam. That's a good point.
And Mr. Watson?
Yes, I have noticed that. And we certainly can ask And I'm sure it's going to be, again, cost. And there's two ways to do it. You can paint it, you can paint the lines, which last about a year due to the sand and the salt and the snow plowing. Or you can do it in thermoplastic, which lasts about a year, but it's 3 times the cost. I'm sorry, it lasts about 3 years with thermoplastic, but it's about 3 times the cost. So the thermoplastic, it lasts longer. It's easy to see at night, but most of what is done is it's done in paint. And we certainly can ask to have it done, and it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
So any other questions for our selectmen candidates?
Can I make one statement in regards to Ed after?
Well, let's see if we have other questions. No other questions? Okay.
Okay, this is very short.
And
Ladies and
Billy
gentlemen,
should
I ride a motorcycle, okay? I got over 100,000 miles on my bike. And what Ed says is correct, but that plastic, when you hit it on a motorcycle, you go down. And I much prefer to see paint. That stuff might last 3 years. You know, you don't drive a bike, you drive a car or a truck. But on a motorcycle, you hit that, you go right down.
Huh.
And it's happened to me. I'm telling, all right, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Certainly. Do either of you have a comment about that, or?
No.
Okay.
No rebuttal.
Yeah, I would say that the cost shouldn't be an issue because it should be under warranty from the contractor, so they should just pay to do it.
Okay. Well, if there, you have a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Daniel MacDonald, 2 Wyker Lane. We have a big ticket item on the ballot, so I'm just curious what's your position on the senior center, each candidate. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Watson, this goes to you first.
There's a ballot question and a vote at the town meeting for about $3.6 million for a senior center. The seniors need something other than this room. It's a question of cost. It's also a question of a cost after it's built as far as to maintain it. Because right now they're getting the free electricity, they're getting free heat, free water. If they have a new when they have a new building, they're going to have to pay that out of the budget for the council on aging. So the budget's going to have to go up. And I know there's figures around, and so it's supposed to cost. We'll get it a little bit later. I think it's like $100, $106 a year, $2 a week for the new senior center. And I forget what the cost was, if it was mentioned, as far as for heat, lights, water, which they're going to have to pay. Plus, it's going to be somewhere around 3/4 the size of this town hall, so they're going to need some cleaning, custodial services, which they're going to have to pay for. We have to manage it. We'll let the townspeople decide. It's about time that the seniors got their own building. This isn't where they're supposed to be here. And like I've said before, if you build it, they'll come. And right now, we got some of the cost. It bothers me on some of the figures, and I know, and we'll probably get that a little bit later. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 2,200 seniors in the town of Groveland. But a lot of them aren't going to be, like, you've got Nichols Village over there. I don't know how many are there. They're not going to come and utilize this. They have a great facility of their own.
Yes, we are. We've got people here.
Okay. But we voted to put it on the ballot, put it before the town meeting, let the residents decide how they want to vote on it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Yeah, so the Board of Selectmen don't vote for or against it. They can support it or not support it, but the town actually votes either in favor or not in favor of it. So that's a debt exclusion. Again, that's what, creeps up your taxes. The overall tax rate doesn't really change all that much over the last 5 or 10 years. It's the debt exclusions that add to everybody's tax bill. So I think that the senior center has been a conversation that's been happening for 30, 40 years. So it's something that I think they deserve and they need. They've been funding a lot of the school projects and a lot of everything else that the town has asked them to pitch into. Like I said before, you have to be careful of what you're doing as far as debt exclusions and taxing yourself out of being able to live in town. You know, we had, a few years ago, we bought the Center Street property, taxes went up. Last year, the year before, we bought the new fire truck, taxes went up. We're gonna, you know, issue a new school, taxes are gonna go up. And then we're gonna issue a senior center and the taxes are gonna go up. So you have to make that a conscious decision on your own and what you think you can and can't afford. The numbers I think that the Council on Aging went over was about 170 per household per year. I think with personnel and heat and everything else that's going to go with it, you're going to look at about $200, which, you know, for some people isn't a big deal. You know, $200 okay. For other people who are on a fixed income, that's a big deal and it's going to be a hardship. So again, I think the seniors deserve it. I think we have to do a little bit more investigative work on the numbers. I think we have to explore all the options, and I think we have to look at it not just being a senior center, being able to use it for other committees and boards and people in town.
Thank you. Mr. Logan.
Yes. Again, definitely yes, no. One of the main reasons is the taxes. I am 78, okay? I personally don't go. I have too much other things in my life that I enjoy and that I do. In fact, I have given up the computer. I found out that if I only got live 10 more years, I want to enjoy myself. The hell with the computer. I don't want it to own me. Always looking at it. Over 6,000 people died in 2017, according to the Wall Street Journal, by walking across the street using their damn smartphones. 6,000 people, kids and everything. This is ridiculous. I can go on about this. Again, it's 2 minutes. It's you didn't change it yet. Okay.
She will, though.
Hurry up. It's
the clock is running down.
It's 3/4 the size of this building. That's big. I don't think we need a building that big. Plus, cost override. I've never seen it where there's something cost overrides. Either the union stops working, they want to, something happens, but we got to cut, our taxes are going to go up more. Maintenance, it's going to cost us money. All kinds of other instruments that are going to go into it. It's going to cost us money. And like I said, between the school, I think the school gets 63 cents, I could be wrong on this, but 63 cents on every dollar. The town only gets 37 cents of every dollar, okay? So the school gets a lot more money than the town does. I'm all for the schools. But budget-wise, I'm on Social Security. I get $1,500 a month. My wife is on Social Security. We live on that. My taxes are going up. I'm going to be hitting 9,000 pretty soon if all this goes through. I can't afford it. What am I going to do? I'm going to move. You're going to lose me as a selectman. Okay? Stop. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Can I ask one more if no one wants to?
Sure.
Anybody else?
I know. Anyone else? No? Okay. Okay.
All right. Daniel MacDonald again, Boyka Lane. There's been debates in the past on marijuana in town, not in town, whether it be a dispensary or retail sales. I'd like to know your position on exclusion or inclusion, or do you want retail marijuana sales in town? Would you support a moratorium along those lines? Where do you stand on that marijuana issue?
So, Mr. Wood, you're first.
Yeah, we already voted on that. We voted to put a moratorium on the residential or commercial personal use, but not on medical. So as far as personal use, we put a moratorium on that. We already voted. As far as medical, I'm all for exploring options and uses for medical marijuana with a licensed physician and certain credentials that go along with it.
Thank you. Mr. Logan?
I would definitely vote yes, and I'll tell you the reason why. It's because people are going to do what they want to do. We stopped prohibition in 1933. Why? Because people were drinking all that time. They were making booze, and of course we got the gangsters. and the gangsters would sell you the booze. You got rid of the booze, you got rid of the gangsters, okay? Marijuana, and my wife is in the health service, she's all for it, especially for the medical health reasons on marijuana. I personally have never touched it. I've never been on any drugs except what she makes me partake, and like Zoloft and everything else. But I do believe, I take 8 pills, but I do believe that the marijuana, if you do not have it, the kids or whoever are going to buy it no matter what. You're not going to stop it. And if I had my way, I'd go the way of Nevada. I'd legalize prostitution and stop divorces. Because from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, only one president I know that never fooled around was John Adams. There was always something going on. 1 minute, she says. I would legalize drugs. Why? You'd stop these kids shooting each other, these gangs. This is my turf. You got set the drugs on my turf, and so on and so forth. If it's legal, marijuana was legal until 1939. 1 minute. During the Revolution, you were required, if you owned land, to grow what we knew then as Indian hemp. It was used to make rope on the British frigates. They used to call it smoking rope because it was marijuana. George Washington grew marijuana. He was required to. Anybody who owned land was required to grow marijuana. That's true, because I'm a historian buff. As far as I'm concerned, yes, because people are going to buy it no matter what. We might also tax it to help us keep our taxes down, because they're going to go to the towns where they sell it. We're going to lose out as far as taxes. You can't, when the kids are going to want it, they're going to want it. People want it, they're going to want it. They want to go on drugs, they're going to want drugs.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Yes. Look, I had voted against this, the marijuana, whether it was medical marijuana or recreational marijuana here in the town of Groveland. We don't need the town of Groveland to become the pot capital of the state of Massachusetts. There's businesses that we can bring into the town of Groveland that would certainly be better than this. I've read a lot. Read a lot of studies out in Colorado. One of the problems is the good people are leaving, and the potheads are moving in. And there was a Boston City Council that went out to and toured the facilities out there, and the comments were the smell is everywhere. It smells. The marijuana odor. We don't need it here. I still believe it is a gateway drug. People start somewhere. And if you talk about medical marijuana, very few people that go to a doctor are turned down. They come up with some ailment so that they can get the medical marijuana. It happens. The other part that you've got, this is a cash business. You've got federal laws that are still against marijuana. You can't get on an airplane in the country if you have marijuana. If you have it, even medical marijuana, they turn you over to law enforcement there at the airport. College students, they could lose, if caught with marijuana, they could lose their student loans. They could lose their education. They could get thrown out of the dormitories. So let's do something on a federal level if they want to legalize it. It's still against federal law, and the Federal Deposit Insurance is not. They don't cover these banks if they lose money that are taking in marijuana money.
Thank you.
A lot of the banks won't do the cash because they know where it's coming from.
Thank you. So I think we have one more question.
My name's Wayne Killian. I live at 1 Nichols Way. I'm not sure this is a question or not.
Oh, it has been. Okay.
There's approximately 120 of us, little plus, that live there. How many school bus stops have you seen at Nichols Village?
0.
Thank you. I think I've made my point.
Okay.
So we don't need a school.
Does anybody else need to answer that?
No, I don't need answers. I just want people to be aware. that,
John.
We're paying taxes and there's no school involved.
Right, we don't need a school down there.
Thank you.
We need a bigger senior citizen center down there.
John Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. Just a point of information. It's been brought up that the cost of maintenance of the senior center, we anticipate approximately an additional $50,000 to $100,000 above the current budget, which a current budget is $123,000 per year. So we anticipate it going up to somewhere around 200, and that will last for 2, 3, or 4 years, because initially we will not have large numbers of people using the facility. It will increase gradually as other senior centers do. Mr. Wood's statement of $200 is inaccurate. It's $106, and if you add the additional money for maintenance, it comes up to somewhere around $108 a year for the average tax person with an average valuation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I know. So, and we're going to get to that issue after this. So we'll move on to closing statements if there are no other questions. And we'll do them in the reverse order of opening statements. So, Mr. Wood, you're first.
Great. So, like I said, the last 3 years have been interesting. The first 6 months is really just a learning curve, trying to figure out how things work, what you can do, what you can't do, what kind of authority you have, and certainly the authority that you don't have. The last year I've been chairman of the Board of Selectmen, which has been another elevated position where there's a learning curve in what you can and can't do. But going forward, I think there's some topics that the board needs to consider to be prudent on. How they're going to spend CPA funds, where they're going to use it, how that affects people, because once you use CPA funds, you're very limited on what you can do with that land or that property. Definitely increase businesses. It's been known for a while that Groveland is not really business friendly. So some of the bylaws have been changed to change how businesses come to town and are interacting in town. So that's been positive. We want to continue that. Also, I have 2 vested interests in making sure the schools are protected. Over the last 3-6 months, it's been very tough watching the news and watching these schools and what's been happening there. So behind the scenes, I've been working with the superintendent, I've been working with the fire department, the police department to really make sure that we're doing everything we can for the schools and making sure that we're being proactive in testing and really doing more than just the basics. And then also the balanced budget. We've actually had a balanced budget for the last 3 or 4 years, which has been great because it's not easy to do, given that, as was mentioned before, that 37 cents is all we get out of every dollar, and that's to run everything in town. So we have to be prudent on where we're allocating the funds, what we're buying, what we're approving, what we're going to give to individual departments, so to make sure that they get what they need to be safe and do their job, but also make sure that we're not just spending money that we don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watson?
Yes, we'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. Again, they've done a great job. Thank you very much. I'm looking for your vote to continue another 3 years on the Board of Selectmen. We've accomplished an awful lot. We have more to do. And one thing that I started holding office hours once a month. That's been a big help. People can come in, talk about some problems. They don't have to go before the full board. We can try to get them some help. And usually it might be a quality of life issue, but we've solved a lot of problems for them, and that's been pretty successful. And this is, to me, the last 3 years it's been very, very rewarding for me, and on a personal level, because if I hadn't run and get elected, the 3 years I have certainly met a lot of nice people here in the town of Groveland that I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't run, and that's been personally that's been terrific for me. I'm just looking for your support. in the upcoming election for another 3 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Logan.
Yes, I firmly, what I'm saying is I really am very truthful in regards. These gentlemen whom I am running against know more about being a selectman than I do, okay? I'm just taking the bull by the horns, but I have no problem with these people being selectmen. There isn't too many people in Groveland who know me. I think the only people who know me in Groveland are the people I arrested. Okay? I wrote up a citation to. They know me. But the average person does not know me. And if you want to know more about me, get in touch with me and I'll be glad to tell you a bunch of lies. Again, I know very little regarding the selectmen. It's like these other people, you have to start someplace. Okay? Again, these people, they know their stuff. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's take your seats. So now I'll call up the speakers who will be talking about the debt exclusion override to pay the costs of designing, constructing, and equipping a new senior center. So I will call up Anita Wright and Ms. Ann McCann. So actually, I think you can come to the table. Yes, yeah. So if you'll have a seat at the table. You will each have 5 minutes to explain your position, and then we'll allow them to answer questions from the audience. And I think there probably are some strong feelings about this, so I just will ask that everyone be respectful. So we'll start with Anita Wright, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, ladies of the League, I couldn't get it out. Ladies of the League, I appreciate the selectmen that are here today. I very much appreciate the Finance Committee and the Finance Director's assistance. Going backwards, distinguished organizers of this opportunity, candidates, competitors, members of the public, and members of the press. Ms. Moderator, thank you very much. My name is Anita Wright. I'm living at 21 Ashcroft Terrace in Groveland. I've been there about 30 years plus. I am currently the Vice President of the Council on Aging Board of Directors and serve as the representative on the building subcommittee that was formed in 2016 to address the senior initiative that we undertook in 2015. I am also, some of you may recognize me as the public health nurse for the town of Groveland, tacked on to the Board of Health, and I've been doing that since 1991. In 2014, I retired from the Brigham and Women's Burn Trauma Unit and MICU, and have made the senior initiative my retirement project for myself. We have labored long and hard for 28 months, building on a scaffolding of decades of previous hard efforts. We know the subject very well. We are really trying to be the expert voice for 2,000 seniors in the town. We know our population, their issues, their concerns, and the services and activities that they require, myself included, I might add. The access and obstacles they face in a complex world of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, drug costs. We know the issues because the Council on Aging is the central resource for seniors and their families to navigate safely through this complicated maze. Additionally, we recognize and respond to the age-appropriate social and cultural interest in the day-to-day life. We have outgrown our space. We have outgrown our resources. We are frustrated and disappointed that we can provide very little more as it is now. We are at the bottom of the bag in terms of creative and imaginative tools for the COA. If not now, when? I fear for the future. I know most of us who have been fighting this battle will not be around, probably when it finally does get built. But we will be replaced. It takes years to recover from this kind of rejection, should that occur. In fact, it takes about 5 to 10 years to get remotivated to pick up the gauntlet again. Who will pick it up if we lose? Who will pull together all the prior efforts and work and data that had been compiled? What will Groveland look like in 10 years? Who will replace the COA team presently? What about recruitment and retention of qualified candidates? I'm very worried about these things. No one wants more taxes, but they will come. You must choose what benefits the common good of all, not window dressing, but measurable, substantive impact on life. Do we need another sports field? Do we need another strawberry field? Do we need another 30 acres of protected land? Do we need a post office and a gas station turned into a fishing pier? No one wants to die, but we all will. You must choose how you live your life and ensure the quality of that life in your decisions. I do not want to try and change anybody's vote. Our sources that we used are in the dozens, including real-time point-of-service experience and documentation to justify this project. The complex priorities and needs of the senior population are to deliver services so that they can stay in their home and in their town. That is what happens at the COA and the senior centers. Chronic disease management, insurance counseling, nutrition programs, navigating government, veteran, and benefit systems, and all sorts of fuel and food assistance occur on a daily basis. The data extrapolated from the Mass Council on Aging, the Mass Executive Offices of Elder Affairs, the Department of Public Health, Merrimack Valley Elder Services, the National Institute for Senior Centers, the National Institute for Aging, the NIH, and the CDC are factors in our determination of need. The time is now. Vote yes for our senior center to be counted. Albert Einstein said, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. McCann.
Tough act to follow. I can say that when I voiced my concerns about funding this particular senior center, I reached out to Groveland residents, and I can assure you there is support for seniors, but this is one message I got printed out of dozens. There were concerns about the scope, great exploring other options, and questions. Mostly people feel the numbers don't add up. There is support. They do want to see it, and I hope that this initiative leads us to re-examine either working with other groups and other buildings within the town to do something for seniors, because there is a strong support. But the questions, for example, what is usage? The figure here is 600 uses per year and projected from the other town. I called the other towns in contact. I got a response, talked to one. The other ones I didn't hear back from, and they laughed. They don't consider seniors as 60 years of age, and basically they see themselves as a community center with a senior label. So it's using their statistics is apples and oranges. For construction costs, in February, they were dropped 40% across the board. And the minutes note over the reluctance of the architect. When I asked what the risks the architect referred to that he was reluctant about were, and what issues how the issues were resolved, I was told, oh, well, you know architects, they take care of everything. Well, yeah. So what would the risks be? I know that they decreased the materials safety budget from 20,000 to 5. That scares me. And that's the way the numbers don't add up. For usage, we don't know physically how many people, I don't have information, physically use the facilities we have, which are limited. Lynn needs much better office space. I do know that the things I've looked at aren't well attended, and I was told that the free movie, the free showing of 3 billboards, had 6 people, 3 from Groveland, 3 from Haverhill. We could do better with a better space, but we have to know who's actually using it at what age levels, and I think 60 is arbitrary. My husband is 60. He's not going to be able to retire till 66 and a half. He plans on working till 70. Who is using it, and how do we best serve them? That's an issue. Construction costs, I worry about, and conflicting information. I can point you guys to the tape of the last Wednesday's meeting. And Anita strongly pushed what she called caregiver relief as a use of the center, saying that you could drop off an elderly family member who couldn't be left alone so that you could go to a soccer game or something. When I asked about increases in staffing, licensing, facilities, hours for that, and you can see on the tape that it was said, drop them off into late evening hours, morning, afternoon, or late evening. There was told, oh no, this isn't daycare. So there is no issue with staffing or licensing or anything extra there. 10 minutes later on the same tape, you can see Ms. Stanton say, oh, staffing's not going to change and the hours will be 7:30 to 4. What is it? Two things apart. Without clear and accurate and complete, consistent information, I would love to be able to support a senior center, but not this proposal, not now. And another thing with the not now is the other priorities. There's the school, the new high school, and clean water for everyone, and that does affect everyone in Groveland. Nobody should have to bathe their baby in that water. No, young people are worried about how to afford all the bottled water. Old people are worried about the increase in taxes that might possibly force them to leave their houses. It's a tough call, and I really hope we can do something for seniors in the future.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to questions from the audience. And again, I will ask you to go to the podium, just so that you can be heard. I think it's the cable. So if you state your name and address, and then ask your question.
Yes, my name is Inez Steele, and I live at 6 Union Street in Groveland. And following up on Ann's question about consistent numbers and consistency in what we hear regarding the senior center, is that I've already heard 3 different prices of how our taxes will be affected. From, I think it's like $120 to $200 a year. I imagine it depends on what that quote-unquote unstated average price of a home is. But even that isn't consistent, and that concerns me. It concerns me about what's behind the numbers that we're hearing. And I don't have a very secure sense that I think that people really don't know. And that makes me worried about voting for something of this magnitude for the town. I too think that a senior center would be a wonderful asset for Groveland. I just am not comfortable at this moment voting that kind of money in when we don't have more information on it.
So Ms. McCann, you can answer this first, and then Ms. Ray.
Well, I do know, I'm not the one to ask for numbers, and unfortunately my number person isn't here, but I do know that I've been told by the committee that the estimate is based on no problems, that they are completely sure that there will be no cost overruns, no delays, they will run into no construction. I redid a kitchen. I find this thing hard to believe. So, and also in February, when they dropped the costs by 40% across the board, that makes me nervous. I really think that 6 million is an underestimate. If it does turn into daycare, we're either liable if something happens to someone, or we're looking at an increased hours, staffing, some sort of training for the people who do it. I have been a hospice volunteer, and I know we have medical backup within minutes of any visit we do. So I don't know.
So thank you. So Ms. Wright.
I don't even know where to begin. The cost, I don't know your 40%, where that came from, but I believe our original preliminary design study cost was at $4.1 million from the architect. And we've gotten it down to 3.65. I think that's less than 40%. The other night, we were talking hypothetically about other uses for it. You're misquoting. I'm not going to have enough time to correct all the errors in your suppositions. But we don't know, for example, a question was asked, can other people use it? We don't even know what the full use for us is yet, because we haven't even imagined it. We know what we need and what we have now, and what we need to complete, and what we want to provide for the seniors now. We don't know. We know that the veterans are looking for a place to go, maybe the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts too, but there were no other demands from the town for use of that center yet. We're certainly open to being neighborly about that and considering community usage in the future. I just can't be specific about that. I don't know the answer to it. In terms of caregiver exhaustion, which a lot of people are experiencing, there are a lot of people that are coming home from nursing homes very quickly after surgery for a short stint in a nursing home and are being given care in homes. And there are a lot of gaps in the services that are available for these people, and a lot of that gap is closed by knowledge and resources from the Council on Aging. The caregivers are the family members who are responsible for the elder in that home. We were envisioning that if we had a senior center, a place that was safe, ADA compatible, the works, that it would, one of the things we could use it for would be to make it available for somebody who maybe needed to have a walker to come in and be in a safe environment with the regular volunteer staff around, people that they can mingle with, have a hot lunch, and get 2 or 3 hours of respite care, not professional care the way you're describing it, but just part of having a place to go, to be cared for, and so that the people can go and do something else with their life. It does a lot for the caregiver to get just a little break. We envision that as a possibility.
Thank you. So are there any other questions? Yes, okay. And feel free, if you have a question, to make your way over to the podium and stand in line.
Hi, Nancy Webster, 69 King Street. So the seniors have done wonders for this town. They've been supportive, and I firmly believe that there should be something to give back to the seniors here. My question is, has there been any exploration of an interim solution, like tacking onto a building, making a big, bright, beautiful space with a kitchen, a food pantry, offices for the COA, something along those lines that may be a little less than a full building?
And Ms. Wright, this goes to you first.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes, there aren't many places like that we could consider. We considered moving out on the campus here in Town Hall towards the library, looking at all 4 corners. It would never provide the space that we needed. It would be an improvement. It would be something more than we have now, but it was not, after we got done renovations and what, it would never, by the time it got done, would never meet the needs that we assess that we need now. We did get an invitation from the old light department building, I believe it was a light department, building over, across the bridge, on the other side of the bridge. That was assessed, and we had it independently evaluated by the building inspector and another person that's knowledgeable about that kind of a building. And by the time we got we would get done remediating that, making it appropriate for ADA compliance and all of the other regulatory compliance that's required for senior centers, it would have cost just as much. So we ended up recognizing that a freestanding senior center on that plot of land that's been sitting, considered for affordable housing but never really materialized. They were very generous and realized they didn't have an active plan for it, and allowed us to negotiate for that space, which we did. So we have a free and clear plot owned by the town of Groveland, central to the campus, central to the river, central to the security of the police station, and all of the resources that people normally use, and we went in that direction. And that's how it came to pass.
Thank you. Ms. McCann.
I really can't speak to how much other explanation, other places have been explored. I know that there have been many suggestions given to me by residents. Washington Hall, although essentially it doesn't have a parking lot, VZ Park. And the question of whether VZ Park could be modified for use for under the $6 million or so total dollars we're talking about here as a minimum. I can't speak to that. I haven't seen a lot of information on anything else.
I can.
That's me.
I don't know what $6 million you're referring to. The debt exclusion, in our calculations at this stage of the game, if we were to go for a 20-year debt exclusion, would total about $5.2 million. That's my best number right now.
Figures go from 5 to 7.
I don't know what numbers you're referring to. Okay. So we did, back in 1997, 96, we were at VZ Park. We gave that a try. It was very difficult. There were no handicap parking places. The building cannot be changed. The footing cannot be changed. That was part of the negotiation of acquisition for the conservation of that building. It could not be remediated to make, it was better than what we had at the time, but it was never going to be able to be turned into a senior center. And if anybody's ever tried to trug up that parking lot, up those concrete steps, do it when you're 70, maybe with a little pulmonary disease, and see how that feels. It was just not going to work. And that was in 1997, one of our other efforts, 97, 2000, and 2008. Those were 3 separate efforts we presented to town for a senior center.
Thank you.
John Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. I would like to answer Ms. Steele's question in regards to the money. At the public hearing, which we had a few days ago, I went through a PowerPoint presentation explaining the costs and how those costs were derived. I'll be happy to share any documentation that the Finance Board and the Financial Director have reviewed and decided that the figures are reasonable estimates for the project. So these numbers are not fiction, and I'll be happy to sit down with anyone and explain how those numbers were derived. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
may I ask him a question? I asked where the number of 600 uses in the first year came, and I asked you. And if people are asking where I'm misquoting from, the quotes I'm getting are from the video of last Wednesday's meeting, which is up on YouTube. So check my misquotations by watching the first half of the video. The sound's terrible. I turned up my hearing aids and put speakers on my laptop, and the sound totally drops out at the end, which is right where Lynn Stanton is saying the hours and the staffing won't change. But I asked, and you said they came, my question was, was the figure of 600 individual people, or the same 12 people once a month? And I didn't get an answer.
Okay, maybe I can answer this question, if I may, Anita.
Yes, sir.
The question is, how many people will be going to use the senior center? The comment of 600 was based on the fact once that senior center was fully operational, there will be 600 people hopefully using it. We went around series of senior centers in Massachusetts of similar size. And the constant question that I asked of every director that I came across was, what is the percentage of the number of people who use your facility who are seniors? And it boiled down to about 30 to 33% of seniors who are eligible as seniors will use the facility, which means that of 2,100, we anticipate eventually 700 people would be using the facility. Not all at the same time, I hope. Now, the question is how many people will be using it initially. It's hard to tell, but best estimates are somewhere between 200 to 250. And after the first year, every person has said the same thing at these other centers. Their group of percentage increase goes up 20% each year for 3 or 4 years, which would bring us up to around 600 or 700 people using the senior center. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and Ms. Wright, and then Ms.
Let me
McCann.
explain where the number 600 came from. It might help you. Lynn Stanton, who is the director of the Council on Aging, is required, and all Council on Agings have to do this, they are required by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs to submit incredible amounts of data. And what they do, they have a very unusual counting system in that they count like in units. So the 600 and odd number units were single use visits in the course of the year that she keeps the data on. If a person comes back a second or third time, it goes into the thousands. So she had 600 to 630 new clients that, like say last year before the numbers were submitted. And then if the person comes 2 or 3 times that week, those units are counted in multiples. So that so what you're looking at is new contacts, counted once, and then the repetitive ones are counted in another category. So the services are constantly evolving, and they're in the thousands, whether it's phone contacts, whether it's family contacts, whether it's coworker, other senior center people that come in to visit from other towns, whatever it is, that's how they're counting it. And that's where that number 630 came from. It's just an academic number that they're required to submit to the elder services in terms of new units, new single-use units. And then the total numbers, and all of this stuff is available for your consumption. It's open to the public. 9,500 is the multiple in 2 offices.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. McCann.
And I
I'm
can
sorry.
say I watched Lynn explain this at the April 2nd Selectmen's meeting. And one of the things she said is when you see 600 uses, you're talking about 600 people coming in for services. One person making 2 phone calls about 2 different things is counted as 2 uses. It's not a person physically in a center, it's a phone call. And I did call one of those and speak personally to the staff of Sterling, Massachusetts. Groveland counts its seniors at 60. That seems very arbitrary and very low, but it certainly makes your cost per senior look a lot less. I wonder what the actual age groups of people who use it are, how many are actually physically present, and I don't know where you find that information. And I got to say, the people at Sterling laughed at me, and they said, it's a community center, our visits count everyone, and do you want to come over and have some coffee? We'd love to see you. I just don't think we have usage information, anything strong. And with actual physical people now, and say doubling it or tripling it would be the best way to find a realistic, reliable estimate for who would use a building in the first year.
Thank you. And so do you have?
Powers greater than myself determine 60 is the age that they calculate their senior data on, nationally and internationally in some cases, so that illnesses are graded that way, treatments are graded that way, projections of life and death, all of that stuff is graded off the age of 60. That's just a common number that's used in gerontologic data.
Thank you. Yes. So you have a question? Okay, certainly. And
I think that's the longest I've ever seen you sit, Valerie.
And the quietest.
Sorry.
Valerie Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. I'm president of the Friends of the Council on Aging. And I keep hearing from Anne and a few other people that they don't really believe these numbers. How can you be, you must be making up these numbers, they don't make sense. Well, a few weeks ago, my husband and I went to visit the Georgetown Senior Center. They had moved a year ago into a new facility at the Pearly School, and they rent the space from the school committee because in Georgetown they have an independent school. So they own, the school department owns the building. They have a daycare, kindergarten section, and then they have a senior citizen section. Anyway, the director there was good enough to give us copies of their newsletter, and I rather liked it, a few grey hairs, they call it. Anyway, I was interested in their numbers because, like Anne was saying, I don't believe the numbers. Well, I'd like you to know some Georgetown numbers. This was just after 1 year after moving into their new facility. And Colleen Farrell, she is the director. These are her words. Since we moved into the senior center, we have had 6,992 visits from people. We have seen 864 people 9,701 times for wellness, meals, social, recreational, cultural, transportation, and service programs, which is a 50% increase on previous years. So maybe you need to go to Georgetown and say, I don't believe their numbers either, Anne. Because I think you need to know, you need to go to these senior centers and find out that they have to verify the numbers that they send in to the state. Thank you.
Okay. So from here on in, it's questions only. It has to end in a question. So you have a question? Okay, thank you.
Raw data, no opinions. I'm an accountant. I've heard project costs, and they vary. But what are the operating costs anticipated, and what will be the source of revenues? And how will that fit into our existing budget on a particular line item, if that's what it takes?
So, Ms. McCann, do you have the first crack at that?
Who's going to pay for it? I understand the debt exclusion will be on your tax bill, but who's going to pay for the operating costs?
I asked a question about...
That's for them, not you, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
John, do you want to address that since you did the research and the computations?
As I said before, the anticipated increase in budget for the Council on Aging will go from 123,000 to somewhere around 220,000, which is an increase of around 100,000.
0.8%.
Thank you.
has that been approved by the selectmen on a warrant or a town meeting? Is that just what you're saying, or is that some certain? Because there's an appropriation process that needs to be followed.
The document that the selectmen saw and the finance board saw referred to maintenance costs, and it pointed, and we looked at Stirling and Westminster, which were the two very comparable towns, like our own population. Their increase has been more modest than 100,000. It's been in the order of something like 60 to 70,000. I pointed this out to the selectmen. They're aware of it. There has been no regular appropriation because the building hasn't been built yet.
I didn't use that word irregular, sir.
Sorry?
I didn't use the word irregular.
So but he
Did
is
I
saying...
say irregular?
I think you did.
Oh. Regular appropriation.
There has been no regular process because the building hasn't been built yet. If it gets built, then we'll cover that. But we are estimating the costs based on other towns that have gone through the similar process.
Which are 100,000 a year.
There are 60 to 70,000, and we're putting on 100,000 at about that figure.
That's
Yes,
what I'm
that's what I stated earlier. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, right. No, that's okay. I think I'll just...
I have no idea. I had asked those questions and didn't feel I'd gotten answers, so.
So, okay. So are there any other questions from the audience? Because it's looking like we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Just so you're all aware, we don't have anyone who'll be speaking about the non-binding question. But the non-binding question that will be appearing on your ballot is, does the town favor changing the elected position of road commissioner to the appointed position of highway superintendent, as proposed under Article 7 in the warrant for the April 30th, 2018 town meeting? So you all will be voting on that. We didn't have anyone slated to discuss that tonight, though. But I'd like to thank Ms. Wright and Ms. McCann for speaking to this issue. And many thanks to all the candidates for joining us this evening, and to Ruth Race and Valerie Osborne for organizing tonight's event, and to our timekeepers, Fran Froelich and Jean Sanders. Thank you. You did a wonderful job. Town meeting, yes. Groveland's town meeting is Monday, April 30th at 7 p.m. at the Dr. Elmer S. Bagnall School, 253 School Street. The annual town election is Monday, May 7th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and all precincts vote at Town Hall. This program will be rebroadcast on local cable channels, and if you're interested in more information about the League of Women Voters of Greater Haverhill, you can visit their website at lwv-gh.org. Thank you and good evening.
Excuse me, Ms. Moderator, do we get a closing statement?
Oh, well, I
promise a minute.
Oh, actually, we did just close, but, it's funny, I hadn't actually, you did opening, so you probably should also do closing.
Thank you.
Sure, a minute each. That's fine.
Thank you.
This is the closing statement about the senior center project.
Groveland, like many communities, will have to recognize that they need to put additional resources into senior services. We are trying to respond ahead of that curve for a healthy community. There are 11,000 senior centers in the United States and counting. Senior centers can be traced to 1950s in New York City, where social workers regarded the isolation and depression in aging very, very grimly. In Massachusetts, there are 350 councils on aging and only 282 senior centers. We are one of the 68 without one. We need a central place to respond to the needs of our high-functioning seniors and the challenged seniors as well. The time is now. Vote yes for our center and be counted. Thank you.
Thank you,
ma'am.
And Ms. McCann.
This is difficult for me. I hadn't wanted to go there. I've talked about my mistrust for information coming from this. And I'd like to close with a quote from Maya Angelou, who said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." You can watch that meeting from last Wednesday, and I've asked the question, and pretty everyone who's responded is enthusiastic for sharing of the facilities. If you notice the mailings, they say it could be shared, or I've heard John say, well, as long as the seniors aren't using it, it can be shared. But both Ms. Osborne and Ms. Wright, at the end of the meeting, we're folding up the chairs, we're putting them, said to my face, sharing is never, ever not going to happen. It was a disaster in Haverhill. The seniors
that's not
were
what we said.
second-rate citizens, and it's not going to happen.
That's incorrect.
And if you...
That's incorrect.
That's where it's, you...
It was a,
I
it was
hope
a
somebody
joint,
heard
it was
us
a
because
joint
it was in
community
public.
center. It was the commingling of communities.
She's giving her
Well,
closure.
we're hoping for the
difference between
enthusiasm
usage
and
and
the
joint
questions are over commingling and use of the center by other groups. And one thing is said in public, and then while we're putting up chairs in private, the opposite thing is said. Yes, I don't trust pretty much anything, and that's why.
I think you have a significant problem with that period.
I didn't want to be unkind, but there it is.
Okay, so I think we'll actually leave it at that.
I think
Thank
it's
you
time
both
to
very
Thank you,
much.
Madam Moderator. Appreciate you. Thank you very much.